So the first project I will talk about is mulching with long-lasting cover crop residues. And so this is using sorghum. Uh, we find that sorghum has lots of good properties in terms of having biomass, large amount of biomass production, deep root system, and allow it to uh, grow in drought condition. And I'm a nematologist, so sorghum also produce a compound that is very toxic to plant parasitic nematodes, and the root leachate is also suppressive to weeds. So there's a compound called songalin, different from the compound that suppress plant parasitic nematode, which is durin. And so some people also can use it for forage, grain, and energy crop production. So our purpose of this project is to see which cover crop is most which sorghum variety are most effective in nematode and soil health management. So here's a summary of how the compound of durin in sorghum can convert into a hydrogen cyanide that can kill nematode when it's incorporated into the soil. So it's a biofumigant. Uh, when we incorporate them into the soil and check how they affect root knot nematodes using mustard as a bioassay crop, and we count number of female that develop after 1 month, we find that all sorghum variety are suppressive to root knot nematode and will stop them from infecting the mustard seedling at 1 month after soil amendment take place. But if you let the plants grow longer for 2 or 3 months, most of this variety they lose their toxicity. So the 1 month old tissue from sorghum are most toxic, and as they age, they lose their toxicity, except for some variety. And so NX2 is one variety that we like to recommend because doesn't matter whether you get it from an old tissue or young tissue. So if you grow your sorghum NX2 sorghum for 3 months old, it will still be very suppressive to the root knot nematodes. And on the left hand side here, NA means is no amendment. So nematode will be very active without the amendment, but with the NX2 amendment or even LA, which is latte, its toxicity will also be very active at 2 months old tissues. And we check another common plant parasitic nematode, which is reniform nematodes on cowpea roots. We again find that NX2 has the ability to reduce the reniform nematode development the best among all the variety tested, although some of them will penetrate it as a juvenile, but they don't develop into female stage. Compared to NA, no amendment, we have the highest number of reniform developed inside the roots of cowpea. So knowing that NX2 seems to be a very good variety, we compare to 6 other variety of sorghum in a strip till system. So last year we tested them in a no-till system. We find that it add lots of organic matter to the soil, but it doesn't really improve the soil properties quick enough in a no-till system because it take long time to break down the high CN ratio of sorghum. And so this year we try it out in a low-till system, which is a shallow till of no more than 4 inches and narrow strip of no more than 8 inches within a 4 feet row plant eggplant planting rows. So 7 variety was tested and a background control is compared. The cover crop was grown for 2.5 months, and then we till that in a strip till system, and uh, the NX2 and Piper. Oh, sorry, NX2 and Piper. Sorry, yeah, NX2 and Piper increase the soil carbon content the most. So just growing for 2.5 months significantly increase the soil carbon content compared to no cover crop grown, which is BG. Here is the background. And the biomass production was highest in NX2 LA, which is latte, and a variety that's a new line is called 542 sorghum hybrid. In terms of eggplants that is planted after this different type of sorghum cover crop terminated and we plant eggplant in there, the moisture was monitored throughout the whole eggplant 5 months of growing season. All the cover crop of sorghum maintain higher soil moisture in this low-till system compared to the background treatment. So it has the gray bar is the background treatment. And interestingly, also just 2.5 months of sorghum cover cropping, all of them also improve water infiltration, which we don't see in a no-till system, but just tilling in narrow strip of 8 inches wide, it all improved the water infiltration rate by all of the cover crop. And next to again stand up high, latte, and piper, along with a hybrid called 512. And so when checking the eggplant yield, sorry, when we're checking the microbial soil respiration using the Sovita test kit, we find that NX2 again can sustain the highest microbial activities in the soil throughout the whole eggplant growing season, and not just during the cover crop season, compared to very low microbial activities in the background treatment. Eggplant yield was monitored for 5 months. We didn't see a significant improve in the yield after one cycle of sorghum and eggplant planting. We hope to see the benefit in soil health that we monitored or documented so far can increase the yield in the second year. So we are continue to do this even though the project is come to the end. But putting all this data together, we see a trend that uh, term- anytime we improve all these microbial soil health indicator by having more beneficial nematodes, we would increase the infiltration rate of the water, and soil carbon also contribute to better soil infiltration rate. But when it comes to checking at yield, is more affected by which treatment are best in maintaining soil moisture, the volumetric soil moisture, which is VSM. The better it is, the better yield it is. And we also find that cover crop that or the sorghum that can increase more microbial biomass, which is monitored by phospholipid fatty acid, the TPLFA here, and the mycorrhizae abundance in the soil will lead to better yield. And since we are also checking on the root knot nematode damage on the eggplant, we monitor the root gall index is opposite from the abundance of certain microbe in the soil, including the gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. So the more of this type of good bacteria in the soil will lead to less root gall development on the eggplants. So overall, we see that beside an X2 that has good nematode suppressive property and good carbon contribution, latte is one that can enhance loss of microbial biomass, gram-positive bacteria, and mycorrhizae fungi. And overall, we see that NX2 is good in suppressing root knot and renniform nematode, contribute a lot of soil carbon into the soil in short period of time. It will increase water infiltration. And when we use this different type of sorghum variety in a strip till system, increase in a structure index, which is an indicator of higher number of predatory and omnivorous nematode in the soil, or higher microbial respiration and soil carbon, it will improve water infiltration. And also, but to increase the eggplant yield, it's better to increase more total microbial biomass, including the mycorrhizae and the gram-positive bacteria. And so latte is also a good variety in improving soil properties and eggplant yield among the variety tested. So this is the summary of the sorghum project, which we posted in our website. Um, but I told Susan, should I also continue reporting second project for long-term ground cover in the orchard system?
Let's finish. If it's okay, we can finish up with the meeting, and then if people want to stay, we can go ahead and do that
Okay.
report. Okay,
So,
great.
yeah, then I'm done.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Okay,
how do I stop sharing?
so I'm going to steal the share, go back
Okay.
to the partners, and actually, Kristen, are you available to provide an update on the?
Hey, Susan. Yes, I
Okay,
am.
okay, awesome. Okay.
Thank you to all of you for responding to the concurrence request on the grassland CRP priority zones that Susan had sent out for me at late last month. I did just want to provide you guys an update. I don't want to get into specifics or what it was and stuff like that, but just wanted to provide you an update on where we're at with that. The FSA State Committee also concurred with renewing Maui and Honolulu counties within the priority zone. So we went ahead and sent that up to our FSA National Office for them to then okay and send back to us. So we should hear back shortly. We haven't heard from them yet, but we should hear back shortly. The sign up for this grassland CRP program isn't open yet this year. It'll probably be sometime early next year. Is when they open it up for the fiscal year. It is a nationally ranked program, so any offers that get submitted into that is nationally ranked with all the offers nationwide. But we're excited to hopefully do a lot of outreach on that program and get more participation here in Hawaii. For the new fiscal year, in the past we've only had a few contracts, but the hope is that we do provide more outreach. I will send that information out, the sign up information out through Susan or through this meeting, and make sure that you all receive that, and ask that if you guys could also help us do some outreach, put it out there that these programs exist. I think it's one of those programs that it doesn't really fit in tree planting or anything like that. It's basically where the producer is putting their land into contract and gonna keep it in grazing, right? Active grazing for the life of the contract, so 15 years. So it is a conservation program in that sense, where we're not, the producer is not allowed to convert their land to cropland or, urban or, build a house on it. But it's not the typical like CRP practice where we're planting trees. So I'll send that information out to you guys as soon as I get it, probably early next year. I did have two other FSA updates, other programs that we have going on. We have the 2022 Livestock Forage Program. Sign up is open and ongoing for all Hawaii counties. So all ranchers on any of the Hawaii Islands are eligible for that program. The deadline is January 30th, 2023. And then we have our 2023 Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance Program, or NAP. Sign up for fruits, vegetables, grass, and honey producers, ends December 31st, 2022. So, we're just trying to encourage all of our farmers and ranchers to come into an FSA office on their island and come see us to see what programs are available and what they can sign up for. But that's about it for FSA. Thanks, Susan.
All right, thanks, Kristen. I'm gonna jump to John to let him do his report on the Urban Ag Subcommittee. John?
Okay. Thank you. So we met the last time a few weeks ago, and we were looking at quite a few maps that were made by Amanda Upshaw. Are you gonna advance? There we go. Okay. So we were looking at maps that were for looking at for the high density places. And one of the things that we noticed is that we had to create different buffers for different maps because of the size of the islands. So looking at the big island was very different than looking at a smaller island. We also noticed that there were some areas of Hawaiian homelands that we wanted to try to include also. So we're still looking at the maps, but we're getting pretty close. So the urban area, is that the purple? It looks purple on my screen.
I think it's underneath it. Maybe the The blue is and
Okay.
the red are underneath it, but then the buffer is the purple.
Yeah, so the buffer goes out, right, and different amounts of buffering for different islands, you know. So there's Guam and CNMI. We had quite a bit of discussion about certain areas and trying to get clarity on why some areas are less populated than others. I think Susan is probably one of the only ones that's been to almost all of these islands. So here's I think here you can see the urban areas with the buffer. It looks like the buffer is in blue there. Maybe it's my screen. And I think that in some cases, the buffer even goes out into the ocean a little bit. So here's Oahu and moving down, less urban areas as you would expect on islands like Molokai. We looked at this, and I think the Hawaiian homelands, we wanted to try to make some adjustments there. Yeah. Go ahead to Maui. And if anyone wants copies of these maps, we have some copies of the maps that either Susan or I can share with you.
So
And
I'm gonna send this out with the notes for the meeting.
Great.
And then any feedback that you have on, whether you think the buffer needs to be bigger, smaller. We were trying to do it in proportion to the size of the island. So basically we put a circle around the island, took the radius or diameter, and then tried to do it proportional. So if you think that the proportion needs to be larger, smaller, just provide us some feedback.
Can you guys bump back to the Molokai image? There was something on there that looked a little odd. Right there. So on the west shore, that northern part of the west shore, that is a portion that is undeveloped. I know why you put that in there, because the northern part of that is zoned hotel, but it is undeveloped. So are these maps including areas that are zoned for development, but that may not be developed?
So we were trying to figure out how to identify like urban areas. We felt like every island had to have some area because it's not like where you can drive to somewhere else and get food, right? Just so we felt that we wanted to find the concentrations of population on each island and then to buffer that. It was really hard. Like a lot of the census data it's either old or it's, so I think Amanda took a look at like areas that were zoned urban to try to identify where those populations are. But like we said, any feedback that you can give us will help us. We've got to set these priority areas for urban agriculture, and then under equip, they could potentially be like an area that would be prioritized for funding for certain urban types of practices. So it was what we're trying to do is figure out how to put the definition together, but we need to we wanted to use the maps to actually see when we said what a definition was, what it would look like. So definitely would like provide that kind of feedback.
These urban agricultural zones then act as a de facto urban growth boundary?
No. So the thing that what we're trying to do, right? So the whole movement across the nation, right, of urban agriculture is tied to getting fresh food produced in close proximity to where it's eaten, right? So, in these like high concentration urban areas, what you have is people who don't have access to fresh food. One of the things in an island setting, which is really different, which is I think is something that the committee's really struggled with, right, is, on Molokai, from the time a vegetable is picked to the time it gets on island, it's like 7 days. So, if we can get food produced on Molokai, it will really help that community to be able to have fresh food in close proximity to where, it is, right? And we feel that way, when I was on Rhoda, it was the same thing, right? They bring in all this food. It's by the time it gets there, it's really old. If we can find, people to grow it on Rhoda, it's going to improve the food availability for the people of Rhoda. So that's kind of the idea behind having an area on each island designated, but then to have that centered around those population centers so that it's, you know, we can get food produced really close to where those population centers are.
Okay, that helps answer my question. You know, I just know that for our community on Molokai, and yes, it does take a long time to get food here. The infrastructure and prime ag lands for producing any kind of locally produced, you know, produce may not fall within these urban agricultural zones. So would it be possible to recommend additional agricultural zones to help support those urban areas that are away from those urban areas, knowing that this is a very small island and that being away is not necessarily very far?
So that was one of the things that kind of keyed us into the Hawaiian homelands, is that
exactly.
we saw, even when this was bigger, we were like, wait a minute, it's not in there. So that was one of the things that we made us think about, you know, for Guam, the Chamorro Land Trust Land, as well as the Hawaiian homelands, you know, throughout Hawaii. Yes.
So I would definitely recommend that the Holehua agricultural DHHL lands get included in this, and hopefully that it will help support green resources to that community to help provide food for our.
Right. So anybody out there, you know, if you've got any comments, please send them to John or I, and we will, you know, work with the committee to incorporate those comments into the definition.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I appreciate those points, Butch, because I don't think we've really thought about areas where it's a lot of development for hotels, like the west side of Molokai that you were pointing out. So please join us for our meetings. We would really appreciate that kind of input.
Thanks, John.
And I think that's about it, unless
I think there's one more slide.
Yeah. So these are some. We've got a lot of interest from farm to school groups that are a lot of charter schools. We're really trying to get more farm to school programs at the state level to get those funded. So the membership is very broad. It's really whoever wants to come. I try to advertise as much as possible, but please help us spread the word, and we can send the link out and as to anyone that may be interested.
So thank you for hanging in there, everybody. Any, I guess, other business that people have, this is our next meeting. I noticed that JB is actually on the call. And let me just see if he still is. JB, would you like to say anything to the group? I know we're running a little over, but I appreciate everybody hanging in there.
Just a little bit, Susan. Sorry for my delay. I've been trying to get a trip situated for landscape meeting in Arizona. I want to thank everybody for taking the time, just not only for this meeting, but participating on the STAC. And Susan, Nick, I don't know if you all covered my piece that I was supposed to provide today in regards to the hour, but for those that are still on in reference to Leah's presentation on REPI, I don't know how much you had an opportunity to talk about IRA, but I'm not going to say I'm concerned. I would say that there's great opportunity for us in the very near future, but as I told the leadership staff for NRCS, we're going to be looking very strongly towards our partnerships and other entities that can assist us in implementing these funds. We've never seen dollars like this before on top of our regular EQIP programs allocation. So we need any and everybody's help and assistance in making sure we provide these resources to the folks that need them in Hawaii and throughout PIA. We've been working diligently, trying to identify alternatives, measures to address that. This is not just a Hawaii PIA concern. I think this is a concern all across the country in regards to how do we strategize, how do we plan, how do we articulate the avenue that we're going to take to make this very successful. We've been challenged by our chief that it's not an option, this will be successful. So we're trying to once again identify those needs that we have, and we're going to be dependent on everyone associated conservation and natural resources throughout the Pacific to assist in that. So I know it's a lot of dollars, but once again, we can succeed. So I just wanted to share that portion. I know, like Susan stated, we're pressed for time, but mostly maybe the next meeting we have a little bit more detail. Once again, as I told the leadership team, we'll know more after the first of the year. I think, depending on whatever the outcome is of the election, we should be starting to receive those dollars sometime between late January, 1st of February. So we'll keep everybody posted as far as the direction that at least NRCS will be headed. I know FSA and RD, they have some opportunities as well, and we'll be working diligently with them. We have an opportunity, myself, between the other two directors. We meet on a regular about how this is going to impact the folks that we serve throughout PIA. And so we'll be looking for your assistance. So I'm not going to drag on, but as we get more information, we'll be getting that out to each and every one of you as part of the STAC. And if those, I know we have talked about this before briefly, but if there are other members that we deem necessary to participate in the STAC based on the needs that we have, please encourage them to begin to attend STAC meetings. I think that's going to be significant as well. So if there's any questions, you all can funnel those back through the channels. I'll be more than happy to sit down with anybody and try to come up with some ideas in addition to what we've already discussed through Urban Ag and other subcommittees. But this is going to be a significant task at hand. So I look forward to working with everyone associated with STAC. So I'll stop there, Susan. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you everybody for coming. If you would like to stay on, and Kunhui is gonna present on her other project. I am recording this and we will post the recordings of her presentations for people that are interested. I'm gonna let you steal the share back, Kunhui, and so other feel free to stay or leave. But thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
Okay, so Kunhui, you're gonna share? Yeah, okay, great. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll carry on with the second project. This one is another year ongoing project. And so for this one, we are looking into growing long-term cover crop as a ground cover, particularly like white clover, in part because perennial peanut is no longer the seed is no longer available to the country, and so we want to examine if white clover will be a good substitute. So it does have lots of benefits of growing white clover as a cover crop: fixed nitrogen, dense shallow root mass with a stolon and rhizome is a perennial system. It's good for erosion control, and once it's established, it will outcompete the weeds. It's shade tolerant, so you can grow it under the orchard tree system or trellis cropping system. You can step on it, it don't die, create a habitat that is also good for beneficial insects. So it's like insectary plants because it has small flowers, allow for parasitoid and hoverflies, or even lots of bees can attend their pollen and nectar. The drawback is slow growing. It takes about 6 months to fully cover the ground, and so it also prefer to be shaded than a full sun situation, especially during its initial growth. So some solution we try to come up with this project is to grow cover crop mix with other cover crops so that other cover crop can provide some shading for it while it's establishing. And we also try out sod planting instead of direct seeded into the ground, plant it in trays so that we can pull the whole tray out, kind of planting a turf sod. And so we find that most farmer we ask, they are willing to mix black oat with buckwheat with white clover, and these two cover crop also die back their animals uh, in a few months. So while white clover is growing, fully grown, then this other cover crop like black oat and buckwheat would be snatched out of the way. Planting cover crop sort can also speed up the establishment. So we call this companion planting. So here is a field trial that we finally successfully grow white clover to full establishment. So initially the buckwheat are very dominant in growth, but the seedling of white clover is embedded under the clover with some buckwheat slowly take over about 2.5 months, mostly dominated by black oat. So the black oat also shade out the white clover further. And at 4 months, we can see a full grown of the white clover with the black oat still growing. About 6 months, then the black oat will die back. At 8 months, we started to transplant some cash crop. So in this case, we transplant our eggplant using some paper wheat mat to allow the eggplant to establish, the seedling to establish. And 10 months old, so we have full grown, happy growing white clover, and the eggplant is also growing well. So we call this Akamai cover crop mix. And so to evaluate whether this is benefit for the soil health, we conduct 2 trials. And in this presentation, I will just focus on one of the trial we did at Magoon teaching plot with our student. And we compare the cover crop versus no cover crop control. So using nematode as soil health indicator and also checking the infiltration rate and microbial soil respiration using Sovita test kit, the cover crop within 2 months after planting uh, increase the water infiltration tremendously, although the number are not very significant. This is in the first trial where we only established the cover crop for 3 months. In the first trial, we didn't successfully establish the white clover. So it's only 2 months of white clover growth. Microbial respiration at 2 months after planting is also higher in the cover crop plots. But then we removed the cover crop and planted a cash crop. So we tried again in the next season. We grow the white clover mixed with buckwheat and black oat. And this time we try to let it grow for 6 months. And infiltration again is improved by the cover crop mix, especially if we let it grow until 6 months after. The statistical difference between the white clover versus the background treatment is very significant. Microbial respiration also become very significant 6 months after the white clover established. And when using nematode as soil health indicator, we see that richness of the nematode. So the soil that has the Akamai cover crop mix has more higher diversity of different type of beneficial nematodes, especially the omnivorous nematode, which is a bigger nematode. They usually indicate a more structured soil food web. And we also calculate this nematode abundance into structure index. We call it structure index is significantly increased by the cover crop treatment, although it didn't affect other indexes that we calculated from the nematode community analysis. So when we put all the parameters together in the first trial where we only established the white clover for 2 months, the benefits of all the soil health properties is not related to each other, where here is the structure index and enrichment index is the indication of more omnivorous or more bacterial feeding nematodes are not in any good relationship with the microbial respiration in the soil or the water infiltration in the ground. So we didn't see too much benefits of growing the cover crop in a short term or the white clover in short term on the improving soil properties. But when we let it grow for 6 months, we can see that infiltration rate highly correlate with the soil moisture, volumetric soil moisture, and these are positively related to abundance of bacteria feeding nematodes, nematode diversity, and also slightly correlate with the structure index, which is the bigger nematode, omnivorous nematode, and predatory nematode abundance. And microbial biomass is also on a positive relationship with all this. Other soil fauna like rotifer or enchytrate worm also contribute to good positive relationship with the better water infiltration rate. So again, comparing the 2 months establishment of white clover, we don't see too much differences on all the parameter measure between the cover crop treatment plots to the background treatment plots. But when we have it for growing for 6 months, we can see it start segregating, indicating that the cover crop treatment are changing the microbial activities in the soil or soil food web condition. So here is the summary of the use of white clover as a long-term ground cover. We have so far from this project, we are establishing this cover crop at Kahumana in Waianae. It's still too early to see the result. We also challenged by irrigation system in the farm situation, but we'll continue to monitor the project and the soil health condition by the white clover Akamai cover crop mix. And so this is all I have for this presentation.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Wang. So can I get your PowerPoint sent to me?
Oh yeah, I just sent
Yeah.
it to you just now.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining, and we'll have to get you with Jason and get some information to our field offices. So,
Sure, yeah.
thank you.
Well,
All right,
thank you.
well, thanks a lot, and for hanging on, those of you with the STAC. We'll see you next time.